Hi VC, it's Rob here with another video. Now, in the background, I thought I'd play this. Robert Forster and Songs to Play. Spoke about this last week, so I thought I'd have it on the background and you can see what you think of it. Now, in May 1989, there was an album came out and it was a real defining album for the time. And it's an album that's made its way to Sheffield. My son's got it, but I bit the bullet this week and ordered it from Amazon. And the album in question is this one, Stone Roses. This is the first album by the Stone Roses. Now, I love this album, and I can remember buying it when it came out. Now, the Stone Roses were formed in 1983. Ian Brown, Remy, Manny and John Squire. And John Squire's the guy who did the artwork for the t-shirts and the 12 inches and the album. Really talented guy and a great guitarist as well. Now this album was produced by John Leckie, famous producer, and I mean I can remember going to a party in 1989 in the summer, and he had a Stone Roses t-shirt on, and great party, you know, playing the Stone Roses all night, just had a blast, great night. And I don't think we realised the significance of the Stone Roses at the time. I think we just thought they were a band from Manchester and we're all into them. But you know, going into 1980, you know, they were a big band in the UK, and they did a famous gig, a place called Spike Island, which is in between Liverpool and Manchester. And you know, anecdotally, there was about 1 million people there. You know, everybody says they went to that gig, but there's actually only 27,000 people there. So, I mean, the Stone Roses were part of a scene called Madchester, and they called it that baggy generation. It was kind of like shoegazy with a real dance feel to it. And there was a lot of bands who jumped on the shirt tails of the Stone Roses. You had the Happy Mondays, the Spiral Carpets, Charlatans and James. They were the 5 big ones really, and they all had their own sort of brand of t-shirts. James had t-shirts that were really brightly coloured with like a flower on and a J on the front, and it was such an exciting time for British music. I'm not sure how successful it was in America, but in the UK it was really big at that time. I can remember watching Top of the Pops in November 89. You know, everyone used to sit in front of the TV and watch Top of the Pops, and the Stone Roses came on, and it was like they'd been accepted, you know, and we was on a journey, and you know, wow, what a journey it was. So yeah, one of the most influential bands of the late 80s going into the 90s. I mean, they produced a second album eventually, but you know, people have moved on, and they had a lot of trouble with the record company. But they got back together about 6 or 7 years ago and did a lot of the festivals, and you know, there's still anyone who's into sort of guitar music in the UK, Stone Roses is going to be up there with the favourite bands. So really pleased to bring this home, and yeah, Stone Roses. Now, I went to this record fair on Sunday. I mean, I'm going to a record fair every week at the moment. I mean, there was one in Charlton and this week, and then last week there was one in Stockport, and this week there's one in Manchester. You know, it's an expensive business, this record collecting, but you know, what else are you going to do with your money? It's just great fun going digging for records. And I picked this album up by Kelly. It's called Trick. Now, for those of you not aware who Kelly is, I don't know if you've heard of a band called Bloc Party. There's the vinyl, very nice, got a K on it. And Bloc Party was part of a scene in the UK, and about 15 years ago, Bloc Party brought an album out called what's the album called? Silent Alarm. And I love that album. It was a great album, and I tried to get my son into Bloc Party, but he was kind of resisting because I'd said how good it was. But at that time we had a lot of bands, guitar bands in the UK. We had the Kooks and Fratellis, Kaiser Chiefs, Friendly Fires. It was, the Wombats from America. We had We Are Scientists, the Killers, we had Razorlight, and there was a lot of guitar music in the chart, sort of in the mid 2000s. It was a really good time. I started to sort of buy a lot of vinyl. It got me back into vinyl because they were bringing records out, which kind of bucked the trend in 2005. And Bloc Party brought out about 4 or 5 albums. Great live band, but I've never seen them live, much to my annoyance. But Kelly sort of left the band for a few years and released a few albums. And this album came out in 2017. Now, I was reading on Wikipedia about the description of this album, and it made me laugh. I wrote it down. It says it's indie rock, post-punk revival, post-Britpop, art punk, alternative rock, alternative dance, and house. But my description of it is dub dance, mellow indie. So, it covers all those genres. And it's a real chilled album, and it's but it's funny because I bought this album off a guy at the record fair, and I recognised him from last week, and I bought 4 albums off him last week, and his albums were £3 each. So when I went up there, I thought I'll offer him a tenner. So I went up to him and I said, will you take a tenner for these 4 albums? And he looked at me and he said, if you tell me what the capital of Venezuela is, you can have them for a tenner. And I'm like, I didn't know what the capital of Venezuela was. So I just said, I know Montevideo is the capital of Uruguay. And he said, right, you can have them. So it's all very strange. That's his sort of selling technique. But what it did is, when I saw him, I mentioned it and he said, yeah, I thought you looked familiar. So he actually knocked £2 off this, so I got it for a tenner. So yeah, good fun. And pleased to pick that up. It's Kelly. Now, pick this album up. I always pick up a bit of disco. Yeah. Tramps. Look at those guys, ready to party. Great sleeve, that. Now, this album's called Disco Inferno, and it's the 4th album by the Tramps. It came out in '76, and it's got a 12-minute version of Disco Inferno on it, and that's one of my favourite disco tracks. It was like the heart of Saturday Night Fever, which is a great soundtrack album. And the thing is, in the UK you can pick up disco for a reasonable price, and it's usually in really good condition, and this is no different. And I love this Atlantic, the blue Atlantic. So yeah, I'm really pleased to pick this up. So yeah, picked up the Tramps. Now, picked up this album. Yeah, Devo and Shout. Now, I like Devo, me, and not got this album, so when I saw it, I was quite excited because I think it was either at the end of '79 or 1980. There was a song called "Whip It" by Devo, and it was one of my favourite sort of new wave songs. And I can remember thinking, this is going to be a number 1, and it got the Rob Curse. It never even got in the top 40, but still a great song. If you listen to "Whip It" by Devo, it's a great song. And I remember seeing the video, and I was quite taken aback, flower pots on the head and glasses, and pretty distinctive looking band. So I really took an interest in Devo from there. So started buying vinyl. I saw this album and I thought, yeah, I'll pick this up. So when I got home, I had a bit of a read up on it, and it didn't have a good review at all. The record company didn't like it, the fans didn't seem to like it, and the band didn't like it, so that's not a very good combination. But the main thing is, did Rob like it? Now, when I put it on, I played it, I was a bit apprehensive, And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, this sounds nothing like Devo. And the guy who's singing on this is someone different and a different member of the band singing. And it sounded like a Human League. So I played it again, and then I'm thinking it sounds like Heaven 17. And I played it again, and I'm thinking it sounds like Depeche Mode. So, I mean, on this album, there's a song called Fourth Dimension, and that's like a rip-off of Day Tripper by the Beatles. And yeah, I think the problem with this album is it's Devo trying to sound like other bands instead of Devo being Devo. So, I mean, would I recommend this album? Certainly not, but you know, I've played it quite a lot, and slowly but surely I quite like it. So yeah, it's Devo and Shout. Now it's a 12-inch up of Little Creatures. Yeah, Talking Heads and Stay Up Late. Now the main thing with this was I really like that really simple sleeve, and I like to put albums on my wall, and I really like that. So I mean, I had to pay up a little bit for this because you don't really see Talking Heads on 12-inch, but you know, it's Talking Heads, what do you expect? So yeah, I'm happy to pick this up, 12-inch by Talking Heads. Now pick this up, The Clash and Sandinista. Now it's 2.5 hours long, this album. It's a triple album, and that can be a little bit intimidating, even for me. You know, and The Clash have done, you know, the first album, Give 'Em Enough Rope, London Calling's a double album, Combat Rock. I mean, they're all different, and I mean, when you listen to this album, you can hear it heading towards Combat Rock. I mean, there's a track on here called Magnificent Seven, and I can remember that coming out and buying it on 12-inch, and I was singing it all the time. I mean, if you've not heard that song, sing it, you know, listen to it. It's absolutely bonkers, but you know, I love it. And there's a track on here called Hitsville UK. Sounds absolutely nothing like The Clash. The Call Up is another song I really like. There's a track called Ivan Meets G.I. Joe, which has got a lot of Space Invader sounds on it, which I really enjoy. A track called Broadway. I mean, it does slightly suffer from having a little bit of filler on it, but I'm not sure whether people have got the time to listen to a triple album at 2.5 hours long. So, you know, it's a difficult thing, and it's like I say, it can be a little bit intimidating, but it's an album I've been after for a long time. I can remember one of my friends having it when it came out, and you know, I got the CD probably 20 years ago when I really enjoyed it, and I've always been after it. And when I saw it, I mean, it's in decent condition. I've played it and it plays okay, so I'm really pleased to pick this up. So yeah, Sandinista by The Clash. Now pick this album up, Strange Days by The Doors. Now, I was reading about this album cover, and the guy who's playing the trumpet on there, they paid him $5 for that picture. He was a taxi driver, you know, and that's like a bit of an interesting fact. So, why haven't I got any Doors albums? Well, the Doors weren't hugely successful in the UK. It was only in like 1990 when I think that the film came out. You know, I've been having a look, and they had a few sort of decent hit singles. Echo and the Bunnymen had a hit with People Are Strange, and I was always aware of the Doors, but I was never, what would you class, that interested in them. Because you got to remember, when I was like 17 in like 1981, you know, it was all about now. It was all about new wave. It was all about New Order. It was all about the Jam. Then it was all about the Smiths. You know, it was all about the Stone Roses. Then it was all about Oasis. You know, and I never felt the need really to look back on old music. I mean, now people have got Spotify, And you can look back on old bands and get into the catalogues really quickly. I mean, the thing I like about the Doors is there's not many albums. So, I mean, I've already ordered the first album from Amazon, so that's going to be coming in a couple of days. I watched a documentary a couple of days ago about the Doors, you know, and that got my interest as well. Yeah, I've always liked Jim Morrison's voice, but I'm just trying to kind of explain that when I was 16, 17, I wasn't interested in things from the 60s. You know, I wasn't interested in the Beatles or the Stones really. It's only pretty recently with like the VC I've seen quite a few people talking about the Doors and the Byrds, and going, you know, now they're a band that I'm going to pick their albums up because I played this album. It's a great album. So yeah, happy to pick this up. Strange Days by the Doors. Now, got a bit of a grail here. It's a grail for me anyway. Spiral Carpets and Devil Hopping. Now, the guy had this at 30 quid, and a guy we called Tony, and we had a little chat and made friends and talking about different things, and I got it for 25 quid in the end, and you just don't see this knocking about. I mean, this album came out in 1994, and it's on the Mute label, and it's got a track on it called Saturn V, which is a great single, and Marky Smith from The Fall sings on a track, I Want You. But this is a really good album, and picking up in Spiral Carpets albums, particularly the later ones, it's not easy, and I was delighted when I saw this. I mean, it's a funny one with me with the Inspirals, because with my friend Graham forming the band, you know, at first I was thinking, you know, do I like them because it's my friend, but I've seen them live a couple of times and they're a great live band, so really happy to pick this up. Spiral Carpets and Devil Hopping. Now, pick this one up. Beach Boys and Friends. Now, this album came out in '68, and it's only 25 minutes long, this album. So, you know, if you go and make a cup of tea, it's nearly over. And it sounds a bit daft, but it's kind of nostalgia for me. And I know I said I weren't into 60s music, but I got into the Beach Boys probably about 2000 in a big way. Bought quite a lot of their albums and a lot of the CDs, and I used to play tracks from this album on a compilation tape I made. I used to play it, and my son really enjoyed the Beach Boys. And there's two tracks on here that are two of my favourite tracks by the Beach Boys. It's Busy Doing Nothing and Anna Lee the Healer. But when I saw this album, I was just delighted, because I've never seen it as a 12-inch, and it just made me smile and gave me a good feeling. I thought it was only a tenner. Like I say, I'm after picking up the Beach Boys. Wild Honey I'm after, and Surf Up. I've got Sunflower, but them albums can kind of the late 60s I'm after. So I'm delighted to pick this up. Friends by the Beach Boys. Now, two more to go, and the last guy that I went to see, you know, he was a bit of a studious guy. He was reading a book, and he was in his late 30s, and I was flicking through his records, and I saw these. Now this one, and this one. So yeah, the Jam, and we're chatting to the guy. He's called Gareth, and I've discovered he's got a record shop in New Mills. It's only about 25 minutes drive from here, so I said I'm going to go and see him Friday afternoon or Saturday. And I mean, I told you the story about the Jam and me, and lending albums to people and not getting them back. Well, you know, this album, the third album, All Mob Cons, picked it up for £7. This, for me, is the best Jam album. It's got Down in a Tube Station at Midnight on it, and a track called Bomb in Water Street, Mr. Clean, In the Crowd, To Be Someone. It's a really consistent album, and the Jam had to go back into the studio to do this album because after the first album, the second album wasn't as successful, and they went in the studio for this album. They couldn't quite get the sound right, and eventually they did get it right, and you know, this is the album that sort of catapulted the Jam from being just kind of an average new wave band to you know, one of the leaders of the new wave scene, and they never looked back from all my cons. And then the second album I picked up, Sound Effects, which it's probably got on one of the most famous Jam singles, That's Entertainment. Starts on this album, a track called Monday, I'm Different Now. Just a really great album. So yeah, really pleased to pick another 2 Jam albums. I mean, the Jam are a little bit like the Doors and the Byrds, you know, they only did like 6 studio albums. So you know, if you want to get into the Jam, you can get the albums relatively quickly. So okay, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed my video. As like I say, I'm going to go and see Gareth's record shop on Saturday. I'm sure I'll pick some goodies up from there. So enjoy the rest of your week, and bye for now.